David Walker believed he was the one carrying his family, until the day he realized his wife had been carrying everything alone. For years, David thought he understood responsibility. He worked long hours at a logistics company on the outskirts of Dallas, leaving the house before sunrise and returning home after dark, convinced that the paycheck he brought home was the center of the family's stability. In his mind, he was doing what a husband and father was supposed to do. He paid the mortgage, kept the lights on, and made sure his family never had to worry about the basics. What he didn't see, what he never truly stopped to notice, was the quiet life that unfolded around him every single day, carefully built and maintained by his wife Sarah. Their home sat on a quiet street lined with oak trees, the kind of suburban Texas neighborhood where kids rode bikes in the evening and neighbors waved from their driveways. Inside that home, Sarah moved through each day like an unseen architect of stability. She woke up at 5:30 every morning. In the house was always the soft hum of the coffee maker in the kitchen. By the time David walked downstairs tying his tie and checking his phone, breakfast was already on the table, and the lunch he would take to work sat neatly packed beside his keys. David thanked her sometimes, but the gratitude was quick and casual, the kind people give for something they assume will always be there. After he left for work, Sarah's day was only beginning. She woke their 2 children, helped them get ready for school, signed permission slips, and made sure backpacks were packed with everything they needed. She drove them across town through morning traffic, then headed back home where laundry waited in quiet piles and bills sat on the kitchen counter waiting to be sorted and paid. In the afternoon, she worked a part-time shift at a small medical clinic answering phones and helping patients schedule appointments. It wasn't glamorous work, but she did it with the same calm focus she brought to everything else. When her shift ended, she picked up the kids from school, helped them with homework at the kitchen table, time to call her aging parents in Oklahoma to check on them. David saw pieces of this routine, but never the whole picture. From his perspective, things simply ran smoothly. If a bill needed to be paid, it was already done. If the kids had a school project, Sarah had helped them finish it. If relatives needed help planning a family gathering, Sarah had already volunteered. The invisible details of life were handled so quietly that David began to believe they required no effort at all. Months turned into years, and Sarah continued carrying the weight of the family without complaint. When their son Jake struggled in math class, Sarah stayed up late helping him study until he understood the material. When their daughter Lily felt nervous about a school performance, Sarah sat in the front row cheering louder than anyone else in the auditorium. When David's father became ill and needed assistance traveling to medical appointments, Sarah rearranged her schedule to drive him even though the hospital was nearly 40 miles away. None of these things felt dramatic. They were simply the count. David appreciated them in passing, but rarely stopped long enough to see how much strength it required to hold everything together. Then one autumn afternoon, something happened that changed the way David saw his life forever. He came home earlier than usual after a meeting at work was canceled. As he walked into the quiet house, he noticed something unusual. The kitchen table was covered with papers and notebooks. At first, he assumed the kids had left a mess after school, but when he looked closer, he realized it was Sarah's handwriting filling the pages. Lists covered nearly every sheet of paper. Grocery lists, school schedules, medical appointments, reminders about bills, notes about family birthdays, instructions for household repairs, and dozens of other details David had never even thought about. It was like discovering the blueprint of a complex machine he had believed operated automatically. Sarah walked in from the laundry room a moment later and looked slightly surprised to see him home so early. She smiled the same warm smile she always gave him. Usual had happened. But something in David's mind had shifted. For the first time, he asked a simple question. How long had she been managing all of this alone? Sarah shrugged gently and said she had always liked staying organized. To her, it wasn't a burden. It was simply part of caring for the people she loved. David nodded, but the answer stayed with him long after the conversation ended. Over the following days, he began noticing things he had overlooked for years. He noticed Sarah waking before everyone else to prepare the day. He noticed how she remembered every appointment without needing reminders. He noticed how she quietly solved problems before anyone else even realized there was a problem. It was as if someone had turned on a light in a room he had been living in his entire life, but had never fully seen. The realization deepened one weekend when David attempted to manage the household while Sarah visited her sister for a short trip. At first, he believed it would be simple. After all, how complicated could a few days of normal routines be? But by the second day, he felt overwhelmed by the kids needed help finding school materials. The refrigerator was nearly empty, and he didn't know what groceries to buy. Laundry piled up faster than he expected. Even coordinating dinner plans felt strangely complicated. David suddenly understood something that had been invisible to him for nearly 2 decades. The smooth life he had enjoyed had never been automatic. It had been carefully maintained by Sarah's quiet dedication every single day. When she returned home the following evening, the house immediately felt calmer. The kitchen filled with the comforting smell of dinner cooking, and the kids relaxed knowing their routines were back in place. David stood in the doorway watching Sarah move through the kitchen with her usual steady rhythm and felt something he had never fully experienced before. Respect mixed with gratitude and a deep sense of humility. That night after the kids went to bed, David sat beside Sarah at the kitchen table and spoke words that had taken him years to understand. He told her that he used to believe he was carrying the family because he worked long hours to realize the truth. The paycheck was only one small part of the life they shared. The real foundation of their home had been the countless invisible responsibilities Sarah carried without asking for recognition. Sarah listened quietly and smiled. The same gentle smile she always had. She told him she never thought about it that way. She simply did what needed to be done because family meant showing up for each other every day. David looked around the quiet kitchen and felt a powerful clarity settle in his mind. Strength is not always loud. It does not always stand in the spotlight or demand applause. Sometimes strength looks like a woman waking before sunrise every day for years, making sure everyone else in the house has the support they need to move forward in life. And as David Walker finally understood that truth, he realized something he wished he had learned much earlier. The people who carry the heaviest burdens in life are often the ones who never complain about the weight. If this story reminds you of someone who quietly holds your world together, take a moment. Are often the ones carrying everything while no one is looking.